Saturday afternoon sun beat down on the small gas station at the edge of Seoul. Ji-won Kim wiped the sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand, leaving a small streak of oil across her skin. She did not notice. Her hands were already covered in grease and dirt from working all morning. Ji-won was 17 years old, but she looked tired like someone much older. Her clothes were old and worn. The shirt she wore had been her father's once. Now it hung loose on her thin frame, with several holes near the bottom and stains that would never wash out. Her jeans had patches on both knees. Her shoes were falling apart, held together with tape and hope. She grabbed the wet cloth from her bucket and started cleaning the gas pumps. This was her job every Saturday and Sunday. Her uncle owned this gas station, and he let her work here for money. The pay was not much, but Ji-won needed every coin she could earn. Her mother was sick at home, and medicine cost money. Food cost money. Everything cost money that they did not have. The gas station was old and small. The paint on the walls was peeling. One of the pumps did not work anymore. The small shop inside sold drinks and snacks, but not many people stopped here. Most drivers went to the newer, bigger gas stations closer to the city. Only people who were lost or desperate for fuel came to her uncle's station. Ji-won did not mind the quiet. She worked hard, pumping gas for the few customers who came, cleaning the pumps and windows, sweeping the ground. Sometimes she helped her uncle fix small things around the station. He had taught her a little, but not much. Her real teacher had been her father before he died. She pushed that thought away. Thinking about her father made her sad, and she could not afford to be sad right now. She had work to do. The sound of engines broke the quiet afternoon air. Ji-won looked up from her cleaning. 5 motorcycles were coming down the road toward the gas station. They were not normal motorcycles. These were sport bikes, the expensive kind that rich people bought. The bikes were shiny and perfect, painted in bright colors that caught the sunlight. The motorcycles roared into the gas station, their engines loud and aggressive. The riders were young, maybe 18 or 19 years old. They wore expensive riding gear, leather jackets that probably cost more than Ji-won made in 6 months. Their helmets were fancy with tinted visors. The bikes pulled up near the pumps and the riders took off their helmets. They were all boys, all laughing and talking loudly. The one in front seemed to be the leader. He had styled hair and an expensive watch on his wrist. His name was Min-ho Park, though Ji-won did not know that yet. Ji-won put down her cloth and walked toward them. This was her job. She needed to help customers, even rich ones who probably looked down on places like this. "Good afternoon," she said politely, keeping her voice quiet. "Do you need gas?" The boys looked at her and started laughing. Min-ho looked her up and down, his eyes full of judgment. He saw her dirty clothes, her oil-stained hands, her worn-out shoes. His lip curled up in disgust. "Look at this place," Min-ho said loudly to his friends. "I told you we should have stopped at the station in the city." "It is so dirty here," another boy said, looking around at the old gas station. "Everything looks like it is falling apart. Just like the girl working here," a third boy added, and they all laughed again. Ji-won felt her face get hot. She knew she looked poor. She knew her clothes were dirty. But she worked hard and she was not ashamed of honest work. She kept her face calm and her voice polite. "Would you like gas for your motorcycles?" she asked again. Min-ho revved his engine, making it roar loud. "We need gas, yes. But I do not know if we should get it here. What if this place has bad fuel? These bikes are expensive. Very expensive. They cost more than this whole gas station, probably." His friends laughed and agreed. They revved their engines too, making noise that echoed across the empty lot. Ji-won waited patiently. She had dealt with rude customers before. Rich people sometimes came here by accident, and they always looked at her the same way, like she was dirt under their shoes. "The fuel here is good," she said quietly. "It comes from the same supplier as the big stations." "Sure it does," Min-ho said, rolling his eyes. He looked at his friends. "Should we let the poor gas station girl touch our bikes? Look at her hands. They are filthy." Ji-won looked down at her hands. Yes, they were dirty from working. Oil and grease covered her fingers. She had been cleaning the pumps all morning. But her hands were clean where it mattered. She always wore gloves when she pumped gas. She was careful and professional. "I wear gloves when I pump gas," she explained. "Your motorcycles will not get dirty." "I do not want poor people's hands anywhere near my bike," Min-ho said flatly. "Who knows what kind of germs you have? You probably cannot even afford soap." The other boys burst out laughing. One of them was laughing so hard he had to hold his stomach. Another boy took out his phone and started recording like this was funny entertainment. Jiwon felt something break inside her chest, just a little. She needed this job. She needed the money. Her mother was waiting at home, sick and weak. The medicine she needed cost so much money. Jiwon could not afford to lose her temper. She could not afford to yell at customers, even cruel ones. She took a deep breath and stepped back. I understand. You can pump the gas yourself if you prefer. The pump takes cards or cash. Oh, she understands, Minho mocked, making his voice high and silly. How generous of the poor girl to give us permission to use the pump. Maybe she will clean our bikes next, another boy suggested. She looks like she needs the money. We could throw some coins on the ground and watch her pick them up. They all laughed again. Jiwon turned away, walking back to her bucket and cloth. Her eyes were burning, but she would not cry. Not in front of them. She picked up her cloth and went back to cleaning a different pump, far from the boys and their cruel words. Behind her, she could hear them still talking, still laughing. They were making jokes about her clothes, her appearance, her poverty. Each word was like a small knife, but Jiwon kept working. She scrubbed at a stubborn stain on the pump, focusing all her attention on that one spot. She thought about her mother at home. She thought about the rent they owed. She thought about the grocery money running out. She thought about her father, who had always told her that honest work was nothing to be ashamed of. He would have been proud of her for staying calm, for being professional, for not letting cruel words make her cruel too. The boys finished pumping their own gas. They gathered around their motorcycles, still loud and laughing. Minho sat on his bike and revved the engine several times, making it roar. The others did the same. The noise was deafening. Jiwon kept cleaning, pretending not to notice them. She hoped they would just leave. She hoped this afternoon would end and she could go home to her mother. Let us get out of this dump, Minho announced loudly. The air here smells like poverty. His friends revved their engines in agreement. They put their helmets back on, still laughing and joking. Minho gave one last look at Jiwon, shook his head in disgust and prepared to ride away. Jiwon finally looked up, watching them get ready to leave. She felt relieved. Soon they would be gone, and she could forget this ever happened. Tomorrow would be another day, another shift, more work to do. The motorcycles roared to life, their engines loud and powerful. The boys started rolling toward the exit, racing each other even in the small gas station lot. Their expensive bikes gleamed in the afternoon sun, perfect and shiny and fast. Jiwon turned back to her work, ready to finish cleaning the pumps. She did not know that in just a few moments everything would change. She did not know that those same boys who mocked her would soon need her help desperately. She did not know that her father's lessons, learned so long ago, were about to prove more valuable than all the money those rich boys had ever spent. She just kept cleaning, her hands steady, her heart heavy, waiting for the day to end. The first sound was a sputter, then a cough, then silence. One of the motorcycles died right as the boys reached the exit of the gas station. The rider, a boy with spiky hair, looked down at his bike in confusion. He tried to start it again. The engine turned over but would not catch. It made a sick, weak sound and then nothing. What is wrong with your bike? Minho called out, stopping his own motorcycle. I do not know, Spiky Hair said, panic in his voice. It just died. It was running fine a second ago. Before anyone could respond, a second motorcycle sputtered and died. This one belonged to a boy wearing a red jacket. His bike made a strange clicking sound and then stopped completely. He tried the ignition again and again. Nothing happened. This is crazy, Red Jacket said, his voice getting higher. My bike is brand new. I just bought it last month. Maybe it is the gas, another boy suggested nervously. Maybe this cheap station sold us bad fuel. Then the third motorcycle died. This one made no sound at all. It just stopped like someone had flipped a switch. The rider, a tall boy with glasses, sat there with his mouth open in shock. 3 out of 5 motorcycles were dead. They sat there in the middle of the gas station lot, silent and useless. The other 2 bikes, including Minho's, were still running, but Minho's was making a horrible grinding noise. It sounded like metal scraping against metal, loud and angry. What is that sound? One of the boys asked, pointing at Minho's bike. I do not know, Minho said, his face going pale. It just started making that noise. He revved the engine carefully. The grinding got louder. It sounded painful, like the bike was crying out in agony. Minho quickly stopped revving, afraid he would break something. "We need to call someone," Red Jacket said, pulling out his expensive phone. "We need a repair shop." All 5 boys pulled out their phones, typing and searching. Ji-won watched from her place by the pump, still holding her cleaning cloth. She said nothing. They had been so cruel to her. Let them figure it out themselves. "The nearest motorcycle repair shop is 40 kilometers away," Glasses announced, staring at his phone screen. "In the city center. 40 kilometers? Spiky Hair repeated in disbelief. "How do we get our bikes there?" "They do not run. We need a truck." "A tow truck," Minho said, but he did not sound confident. He was scrolling through his phone, looking more worried by the second. "This is going to be so expensive. My dad is going to kill me," Red Jacket moaned. "I promised him I would take care of this bike. It cost him 40 million won." The boys stood there in the hot afternoon sun, staring at their dead motorcycles. Their earlier confidence was completely gone. They looked scared and lost, like children who had gotten separated from their parents. "This is that gas station's fault," Minho suddenly declared, pointing at the pumps. "Their fuel did this. Bad fuel can destroy engines. My uncle told me that once." "Yes, that must be it," Spiky Hair agreed quickly. "We should report them. Make them pay for repairs. We should sue them," Glasses added. They all turned to look at the gas station, then at Ji-won. She was still standing by the pumps, watching them quietly. Her face showed no expression. She had heard their plan to blame the gas station, to blame her uncle, to blame her. Minho started walking toward her, his expensive shoes crunching on the gravel. The grinding noise from his still-running bike followed him like a ghost. The other boys followed, leaving their dead motorcycles behind. "You," Minho said, pointing at Ji-won. "Your gas station did this. Your bad fuel killed our bikes." Ji-won looked at him calmly. "The fuel here is the same quality as anywhere else. I told you that before." "Then why did our bikes all die at the same time?" Red Jacket demanded. "That is too much of a coincidence." "Maybe your bikes had problems before you got here," Ji-won said quietly. "Maybe the problems just showed up now." "That is impossible," Minho said angrily. "These are expensive bikes. The best bikes. They do not just break down for no reason." Ji-won wanted to say that all bikes could break down, expensive or not. She wanted to say that motorcycles needed proper care and maintenance. She wanted to say a lot of things, but she kept quiet. These boys would not listen to her anyway. While the boys argued about whose fault it was, Ji-won found herself watching the motorcycles. She could not help it. Her father had taught her to always notice bikes, to always listen, to always observe. It was a habit she could not break even when she wanted to. She looked at the first bike, the one that had sputtered and died. She noticed how it sat, slightly tilted. She remembered the coughing sound it had made before stopping. That sound meant something specific. The second bike, Red Jackets, had made clicking sounds. Ji-won had heard clicks like that before in her father's workshop years ago. She knew what they meant. The third bike had just stopped completely, no sound at all. That was different. That was an electrical problem, probably. And Minho's bike, still running but grinding. That sound was familiar too. Her father had taught her about that sound. She could almost hear his voice in her memory explaining what caused it. "We are going to report this place," Minho was saying, still angry. "We are going to tell everyone about the bad fuel here." "You will lose your business," something in Ji-won snapped. Not anger exactly, more like tired frustration. Her uncle had worked hard to keep this gas station running. He had given her a job when she desperately needed one. She could not let these rich boys destroy his business with lies. "It is not the fuel," she said, louder than before. The boys stopped talking and looked at her. "What did you say?" Minho asked. "I said it is not the fuel," Ji-won repeated. She put down her cloth and walked toward them. "Your motorcycles have different problems. 3 different problems, actually. 4 if you count yours." The boys stared at her like she had grown a second head. "How would you know?" Glasses asked, his voice full of doubt. "You are just a gas station worker." "I know about motorcycles," Ji-won said simply. This made the boys laugh. Not as cruel as before, but still mocking. They looked at each other and shook their heads. "You?" Minho said, barely holding back his laughter. "You know about motorcycles? These are sport bikes, high-performance machines. They are complicated. Very complicated." "I know," Ji-won said. "My bike costs more than you probably make in 5 years," Red Jacket said. "It is computerized fuel injection, advanced electronics, everything." "You think you know about that?" Ji-won wanted to tell them that her father had been a master mechanic. She wanted to tell them that she had grown up in a workshop, surrounded by motorcycles of every kind. She wanted to tell them that she had learned from the best, that she understood bikes better than they ever would. But she did not say any of that. They would not believe her anyway. Poor girls in dirty clothes were not supposed to know anything about expensive motorcycles. I could help you, she offered instead. I could look at your bikes. Look at our bikes. Minho repeated in disbelief. With those dirty hands? Oh, thank you. I would not touch them, Jiwon said. I would just look and listen. This is ridiculous, Spiky Hair said. We should just call the tow truck. Stop wasting time with her. Actually, Glasses said slowly, the tow truck company said it will be 2 hours before they can get here. Saturday is their busy day. 2 hours? Red Jacket groaned. In this heat? They all looked miserable. The sun was hot, beating down on the concrete. There was no shade at the gas station except for the small area near the shop building. 2 hours was a long time to wait in the sun. Minho looked at Jiwon, his eyes narrowed. You really think you know what is wrong with our bikes? I think I might, Jiwon said carefully. This is so stupid, Minho muttered. But then he looked at his friends, at their unhappy faces, at the dead motorcycles. He looked at his own bike, still making that horrible grinding noise. Fine, if you are so smart, tell us what is wrong. Just by looking. No touching. If I do not touch them, I cannot fix them, Jiwon pointed out. Oh, we do not want you to fix them, Minho said quickly. We just want to see if you actually know anything. This will be funny. Watching you pretend to be a mechanic. His friends laughed again, their confidence coming back. This was entertainment for them now. The poor gas station girl claiming to know about their expensive bikes. They would let her look, let her pretend, and then they would laugh at her when she was wrong. Okay, one of them said. Here is a challenge. If you are so smart, fix our bikes without even touching them. Just tell us what to do. If you can do that, we will believe you actually know something. Yes, Minho agreed, warming to the idea. Fix them without tools, without touching them. Just your words. If you can do that, I will personally apologize for everything I said earlier. The boys all agreed, laughing and nodding. They thought it was impossible. They thought they were being clever, setting up a challenge she could never win. Jiwon looked at the motorcycles again. She thought about her father, about all the lessons he had taught her. She thought about how he used to say that the best mechanics did not need to touch a bike to know what was wrong with it. They could listen. They could observe. They could understand. Okay, Jiwon said quietly. I will try. The boys grinned at each other, barely holding back their laughter. They thought this would be hilarious. They thought she would embarrass herself, and they would have a funny story to tell their friends later. They had no idea what was about to happen. Jiwon walked slowly toward the first motorcycle, the one that belonged to Spiky Hair. She kept her hands behind her back, showing that she would not touch it. The boys followed her, forming a half circle around her and the bike. They were smiling, waiting for her to fail. She stopped about a meter away from the motorcycle and just stood there looking at it. She looked at how it sat on its stand. She looked at the angle of the body. She looked at small details that most people would never notice. Are you going to stare at it all day? Spiky Hair asked with a laugh. Maybe if you look hard enough, it will fix itself. Jiwon ignored him. She closed her eyes and thought back to the moment when the bike had died. She remembered the sound it had made. That sputtering, coughing sound. She had heard that sound before many times in her father's workshop. She opened her eyes and walked around the bike, still not touching it. She bent down slightly, looking at the fuel tank, at the lines, at the small details of the engine. When did you last change your oil? She asked Spiky Hair. What? He looked confused. I do not know. A few months ago, maybe? How many kilometers have you ridden since then? I do not know exactly. Maybe 3,000 kilometers? Maybe more? Jiwon nodded slowly. And what fuel do you normally use? What grade? The normal kind, Spiky Hair said, shrugging. Whatever is cheapest, usually. Do you use any additives? Special cleaners or performance boosters? Spiky Hair's face changed slightly. Sometimes. My friend sold me this stuff that is supposed to make the bike faster. I have been using it for a few weeks. What brand? Jiwon asked. I do not remember the name. It was cheap, though. Really cheap. Jiwon nodded again. She stood up and looked at the bike one more time. Then she moved to the second motorcycle, Red Jacket's bike. She repeated the same process, walking around it, observing carefully, not touching anything. This bike is new, right? She asked Red Jacket. Yes, only 1 month old, he said proudly, then remembered it was broken and frowned. How do you store it? Where do you keep it? In my garage at home.
Why does that matter?
Is the garage climate controlled? Air conditioned? Red Jacket looked uncomfortable. No, it is just a regular garage. It gets hot in there during the summer. And you fill the tank completely when you park it? Yes, always. My uncle told me to keep the tank full so it does not rust inside. Do you ride it every day? No, only on weekends usually. Sometimes it sits in that hot garage for a whole week. Jiwon made a small sound of understanding. She moved to the third motorcycle, the one belonging to Glasses. This bike had stopped completely. No sound at all. She looked at it carefully, paying special attention to the battery area and the electrical components she could see. Has your battery been acting strange lately? She asked Glasses. He looked surprised. How did you know? Yes, sometimes the bike is slow to start. Sometimes the lights flicker a little. Did you check the battery connections? No. I meant to, but I kept forgetting. Jiwon bent down without touching the bike, looking closely at where she knew the battery would be. She could see something, just barely. A small gap in the connection, a slight looseness. Finally, she walked to Minho's bike, the one still running and making that awful grinding noise. She listened to the sound carefully. It was rhythmic, repeating with each rotation of something inside. She knew that rhythm. How tight is your chain? She asked Minho. My chain? He looked confused. I do not know. I never checked it. When did you last adjust it? Never. The bike is only 6 months old. It should not need adjusting yet. Do you ride hard? Fast acceleration, quick stops? Minho looked proud. Of course. That is what these bikes are made for. I race my friends all the time. And you never check the chain tension? Why would I? It is a new bike. Jiwon straightened up and looked at all 5 boys. They were staring at her with a mix of curiosity and doubt. They did not believe she actually knew anything yet. They thought she was just asking random questions. I think I know what is wrong with each bike, Jiwon said quietly. Really? Minho said with fake enthusiasm. Please tell us. This should be good. Jiwon turned to Spiky Hair first. Your bike has a clogged fuel injector. The cheap additive you used left residue in your fuel system. It built up over time and finally blocked the injector completely. That is why your bike sputtered and died. Spiky Hair's smile faded a little. That is very specific. But you could be guessing. Jiwon moved to Red Jacket. Your bike has vapor lock. You filled the tank completely and left it sitting in a hot garage. The fuel expanded in the heat, creating vapor pressure in the fuel lines. When you started riding in the hot afternoon sun, the vapor blocked the liquid fuel from flowing. That is why it made clicking sounds and then stopped. Red Jacket was not smiling anymore. He looked at his bike, then back at Jiwon. Your bike, Jiwon said to Glasses, has a loose battery connection. You said the battery has been acting strange. The connection has been working loose over time, probably from vibration while riding. Today it finally came completely loose. That is why your bike just stopped with no warning. No sound, no sputter, just dead. That is an electrical failure. Glasses pushed his glasses up his nose nervously. That actually makes sense, he admitted quietly. Finally, Jiwon turned to Minho. Your chain tension is wrong. You ride hard but never check it. The chain has stretched over 6 months of hard riding. Now it is loose and rubbing against something, probably the chain guard or sprocket. That grinding sound is the chain hitting metal. If you keep riding like this, the chain will snap. Maybe within 5 kilometers. The boys were silent now. No more laughing. No more mocking. They looked at each other uncertainly. Those are good guesses, Minho said, but his voice was not confident anymore. But guessing and knowing are different things. I am not guessing, Jiwon said. She turned away from them and looked up at the sky. She was remembering something from long ago. The memory came to her clearly, like it was happening right now. She was 9 years old, standing in her father's workshop. The workshop was always full of motorcycles lined up in rows waiting to be fixed. Her father was the best mechanic in their district. People came from far away to bring him their bikes. He could fix anything. But more than that, he could diagnose problems just by listening. Jiwon, her father had said to her one day. Come here and listen to this. She had walked over to where he stood next to a motorcycle. He started the engine and it made a strange noise, a kind of knocking sound. What do you hear? He asked her. A knocking sound, 9-year-old Jiwon had answered. Yes, But what does the sound tell you? Listen deeper. Every sound a bike makes is telling you something. Every noise is a word in the motorcycle's language. He had taught her to listen. Really listen. He taught her that a sputter meant fuel problems. A click meant electrical issues. A grind meant friction somewhere, metal on metal. A knock meant something loose inside the engine. The best mechanics, her father had told her many times. Listen first and touch second. Most people want to start taking things apart right away. But if you listen carefully, the bike will tell you exactly what is wrong. You just need to learn its language. Jiwon had spent years learning that language. Every day after school, she would go to her father's workshop. She would watch him work. She would help with small tasks. She would listen to every bike that came through the door. Her father taught her about fuel systems, electrical systems, chains, brakes, engines. He taught her about different types of bikes, different problems they had. He taught her to observe small details that other people missed. See how that bike sits tilted? He would say. That means the suspension on one side is weak. Notice how the exhaust smells sweet? That means coolant is leaking into the engine. Hear that whistling sound? That is air getting into the fuel line somewhere. He had taught her everything he knew, and he knew a lot. Her father had been a motorcycle racer when he was young, before she was born. He had raced in professional competitions all over Korea. He knew racing bikes, street bikes, old bikes, new bikes. He understood them like they were living things. Motorcycles are honest, he used to say. They do not lie. If something is wrong, they will tell you. You just have to listen. Jiwon had been a good student. She loved motorcycles as much as her father did. She loved the smell of oil and gasoline. She loved the sound of engines. She loved figuring out problems and fixing them. When she was 14, her father let her diagnose her first bike by herself. A customer had brought in a motorcycle that would not start. Her father stood back and watched as Jiwon walked around the bike, listening, observing. She had noticed that the bike smelled like old gasoline. She had seen corrosion on the battery terminals. She had heard a weak clicking when the customer tried to start it. She told her father that it had two problems: a dead battery and old fuel in the carburetor. Her father had smiled so wide. Perfect, he had said. You're a natural, Jiwon. Someday you will be an even better mechanic than me. But then 3 years ago, everything changed. Her father got sick. Cancer, the doctor said. It happened so fast. 1 month he was fine, working in his workshop every day. The next month he was in the hospital, too weak to stand. He fought hard, but the cancer was stronger. He died 6 months after the diagnosis, leaving behind a devastated wife and a 15-year-old daughter. He also left behind mountains of medical debt that they could not pay. They had to sell the workshop to pay some of the debt. They had to sell their house and move to a smaller apartment. Jiwon's mother, crushed by grief and stress, became sick herself. Not cancer, but depression and anxiety so bad that she could barely function. At 15, Jiwon had to become an adult overnight. She took any job she could find. She worked at convenience stores, restaurants, anywhere that would hire a young girl. She gave up her dream of going to mechanic school. There was no money for that. There was barely money for food, but she never forgot what her father taught her. Late at night, after her mother fell asleep, Jiwon would watch videos about motorcycles on her old phone. She would read articles and forums. She would study everything she could, trying to keep her skills sharp, hoping that someday she could use them. She never got to practice, though. She had no tools, no workshop, no bikes to work on. She just had memories and knowledge locked inside her head, useless. Until today. Jiwon came back to the present moment. She was standing in the hot sun at her uncle's gas station, surrounded by 5 rich boys and their broken motorcycles. The boys were watching her with new expressions on their faces. Not quite respect, but not mockery either. Something in between. You really think you can fix them? Glasses asked, and this time his voice was serious. Without touching them? Red Jacket added. That seems impossible. Not impossible, Jiwon said. Difficult maybe, but not impossible. Your bikes do not need major repairs. They just need adjustments and resets. Small fixes that you can do yourselves if I tell you how. Why should we believe you? Minho asked, but he did not sound angry now. He sounded genuinely curious. You do not have to believe me, Jiwon said with a small shrug. You can wait 2 hours for the tow truck. You can pay lots of money to take your bikes to the city. That is your choice. But if we listen to you and you are wrong, Minho said, we could make the problems worse. That is true, Jiwon admitted. But if you do nothing, your bikes are still broken. What do you have to lose by trying? The 5 boys looked at each other. They were having a silent conversation with their eyes. Should they trust her? Should they take the chance? She was just a poor gas station worker in dirty clothes. But she had known things. Specific things. Things she should not have known just by guessing. Finally, Glasses spoke up. I want to try. My dad will kill me if I spend thousands on a tow truck for something simple. Me too, Red Jacket said slowly. She knew about the vapor lock. I have never even heard of that before. One by one, the others agreed. Even Minho, though he looked reluctant. Fine, he said. We will try it your way. But if you break our bikes even more, we are definitely suing this gas station. Jiwon nodded. Fair enough, she took a deep breath. This was it. Her father's lessons, everything he had taught her, were about to be tested. She just hoped she remembered everything correctly. She hoped she was as good as her father had believed she could be. Okay, she said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. Let us start with the first bike. Jiwon walked back to Spiky Hair's motorcycle. The boy stood next to his bike, arms crossed, trying to look confident but clearly nervous. His expensive bike sat there silent and dead, mocking all the money he had spent on it. Your fuel injector is clogged, Jiwon reminded him, but there is a way to clear it without taking anything apart. It is a kind of reset trick. A reset trick? Spiky Hair repeated doubtfully. That sounds made up. Modern fuel injection systems have a cleaning cycle built into them, Jiwon explained, keeping her voice patient. Most people do not know about it because they never need to use it. But mechanics know. My father taught me, she instructed him carefully. Turn your key to the on position. Do not start the bike, just turn the key to on. You will see your dashboard lights come on. Spiky Hair did as she said. The dashboard lit up with various colored lights. Now turn the key off, Jiwon continued. Wait 3 seconds. Then turn it on again. Off, wait 3 seconds, on again. Do this 3 times total. This is ridiculous, Spiky Hair muttered, but he followed her instructions. On off, wait. On off, wait. On off, wait. After the 3rd time, Jiwon said, leave the key on for 30 seconds. Do not touch anything else. Just wait. The boys all gathered around to watch. 30 seconds felt very long when everyone was staring and waiting. Spiky Hair kept glancing at Jiwon, clearly thinking this was a waste of time. Okay, 30 seconds are up, he finally said. Now what? Now try to start it, Jiwon said simply. Spiky Hair rolled his eyes but pressed the start button. The engine turned over once, twice, and then roared to life. The sound was clean and strong. No sputtering, no coughing. The bike was running perfectly. Spiky Hair's mouth fell open. He revved the engine carefully. It responded smoothly, like nothing had ever been wrong. He looked at Jiwon with total shock. How did you do that? He demanded. That is impossible. How did that fix it? The key sequence forced the fuel injection computer to run its cleaning cycle, Jiwon explained. The cycle pushed a burst of high-pressure fuel through the injector, clearing out the blockage from the cheap additive. It is like blowing out a clogged straw with a strong breath. The other boys were staring now, not at Spiky Hair's bike, but at Jiwon. Their expressions had changed completely. The mockery was gone. Now there was surprise, curiosity, and maybe a little bit of respect. That was just luck, Minho said, but his voice was uncertain. One bike does not prove anything. Let us try the next one then, Jiwon said calmly. She walked over to Red Jacket's motorcycle, the one with vapor lock. This would be trickier. Vapor lock was about physics, about temperature and pressure. You could not just reset it with a computer trick. Your problem is vapor in the fuel lines, Jiwon told Red Jacket. The fuel turned to gas from the heat. Gas cannot flow through the fuel pump like liquid can, so your engine is starving for fuel even though your tank is full. So what do I do? Red Jacket asked. He was listening seriously now, not laughing at all. The vapor needs to condense back into liquid. That means the fuel system needs to cool down. How long have you been riding today? About an hour, Red Jacket said. We left the city and rode around before stopping here, so the whole system is hot. We need to cool it down. Jiwon looked around the gas station, thinking, Do you have any water? Cold water? I have a bottle in my backpack, Red Jacket said, pulling out an expensive metal water bottle. It is still pretty cold. Good. Pour some of that water over the fuel line. Not on the engine, just the line that runs from the tank. Do you see it? That rubber hose. Red Jacket found the fuel line and poured cold water over it. The water ran down the hot metal and rubber, steaming slightly. Now we need to reduce the pressure, Jiwon continued. Very carefully turn your gas cap just a tiny bit. Not all the way off, just crack it open slightly. You should hear a hiss as the pressure releases. Red Jacket did as instructed. There was indeed a hiss, like opening a bottle of soda. Pressurized air escaped from the tank. Wait 5 minutes for things to cool and settle, Jiwon said. Do not touch anything. Just let it sit. The 5 minutes felt even longer than the 30 seconds had. The boys stood around in the heat, watching Red Jacket's motorcycle like it was about to perform a magic trick. Nobody spoke. They just waited. Jiwon watched the clock on her phone. When 5 minutes passed, she nodded to Red Jacket. Close your gas cap tightly, then try to start it. Do not give it gas, just let it idle if it starts. Red Jacket tightened the gas cap and pressed his start button. The engine turned over slowly at first, reluctantly. Then it caught. It ran rough for a few seconds, coughing a little, but then smoothed out. Within 10 seconds, it was running perfectly. Red Jacket sat on his bike, staring at the dashboard like he could not believe it. He revved the engine gently. It responded perfectly. All the clicking sounds were gone. The bike was fixed. You actually did it, he said quietly. You really fixed it. 2 for 2, Glasses said, his voice full of wonder. That is not luck anymore. Let us see if she can fix mine, Glasses added, walking to his own dead motorcycle. The electrical problem. Jiwon nodded and approached the third bike. This one was tricky because she could not actually see the battery connection problem. She just knew it was there based on the symptoms and her experience. Your battery terminal is loose, she told Glasses. The connection is not making solid contact anymore. But we cannot fix that without tools, and I promised not to touch your bike. So what can we do? Glasses asked, disappointed. Jiwon thought hard. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. When you have no tools, use what is around you. Everything can be a tool if you think creatively. She looked at Glasses carefully. Take off your belt, she said. What? Why? Your belt is leather, right? Leather does not conduct electricity. We can use it as insulation. And take off one of your bootlaces. We need something to create pressure. Glasses looked confused, but did as she asked, removing his leather belt and one bootlace. He handed them to Jiwon, then paused. Wait, I thought you were not going to touch the bike. I am not, Jiwon said. You are going to fix it. I am just going to tell you how. She directed him to open the small side panel that covered the battery. Glasses had to use his key to pop it open. Inside, they could all see the battery with its 2 terminals and connected wires. See the positive terminal? Jiwon pointed without touching. The red wire? See how there is a small gap between the terminal and the connector? That is your problem. Glasses leaned in close. Oh wow, you are right. I can see it. There is definitely a gap. We need to tighten that connection, but your hand cannot reach in there properly and we have no wrench. So we improvise. Jiwon thought for a moment. Fold your belt and wrap it around the connector. The leather will protect your hand. Then use your bootlace to tie around it, pulling the connection tight against the terminal. That is crazy, Glasses said. Will that actually work? Only one way to find out, Jiwon replied. Glasses worked carefully, following her instructions exactly. He folded his expensive leather belt and wrapped it around the battery connector for protection. Then he wound his bootlace around and around, pulling it tight, creating pressure that forced the loose connection firmly against the terminal. Make sure the lace is not touching both terminals, Jiwon warned. That would cause a short circuit. Only touch the one connector we are fixing. Glasses adjusted carefully until everything was in place. Okay, I think I got it. Try to start it. Glasses climbed on his bike and pressed the start button. Nothing happened. His face fell. But then Jiwon noticed something. Your bootlace is touching metal, she said quickly. It is grounding the connection. Adjust it slightly, just a tiny bit to the right. Glasses made the adjustment. This time when he pressed the start button, the bike roared to life immediately. All the dashboard lights came on properly. Everything worked perfectly, yes, Glasses shouted, pumping his fist in the air. It works. It actually works. The boys erupted in excited chatter. 3 bikes fixed. 3 completely different problems, 3 solutions without tools or even touching the bikes directly. This was more than luck now. This was real skill, but Minho still looked skeptical. Those were all simple fixes, he said, though his voice had no confidence in it. My bike is different. That grinding sound means something serious is wrong. She probably cannot fix that without tools. Ji-won turned to face him. Your chain tension is wrong. That is not simple, but it is fixable. How? Minho demanded. Chain tension requires special tools. I know because I watched a video about it once. You need a specific wrench and a measurement tool. You have a toolkit on your bike, right? Ji-won asked. All sport bikes come with a basic toolkit under the seat. Minho looked surprised. Yes, but it is just basic stuff. Just enough to make small adjustments. That is all we need. Get the toolkit. Minho opened his seat compartment and pulled out a small roll of tools. There was a set of wrenches, a screwdriver, and a few other basic items. He laid them on the ground near his bike. Ji-won studied the bike from a distance, listening to the grinding sound. She could see the chain, could see how it hung lower than it should. She knew what needed to be done, but explaining it would be difficult. Your bike has adjustment bolts on both sides of the rear axle, she began. Do you see them? Small bolts with marks next to them. Minho crouched down and looked. Yes, I see them. There are numbers marked on the swing arm. Those numbers show chain tension. Right now, both sides probably show different numbers. That means your chain is not only loose, but also misaligned. That is why the grinding is so bad. How do I fix it? Minho asked, and for the first time there was no arrogance in his voice. He sounded like a student asking a teacher. We need to loosen the rear axle nut first, just a little. Not all the way off, just enough so the axle can move. You will need the biggest wrench in your toolkit. Minho found the wrench and positioned it on the large nut holding the rear axle. He pushed hard and the nut loosened with a loud crack. Not too much, Ji-won warned. Just a quarter turn. We want it loose enough to adjust, but not so loose that the wheel can move on its own. Minho stopped immediately and stepped back. Now we adjust the tension bolts, Ji-won continued. She had him find a small stick from nearby, a thin branch that had fallen from a tree. We need to measure. The chain should have about 2 centimeters of up and down movement in the middle, no more no less. Using the stick as a measuring tool, Ji-won guided Minho through checking the current tension. It was way too loose, almost 4 centimeters of movement. We need to tighten it. Turn both adjustment bolts clockwise, but count your turns. Both sides must turn exactly the same amount or the wheel will be crooked. How many turns? Minho asked. Start with 3 complete turns on each side, then we check again. Minho worked carefully, counting out loud. 3 turns on the right side. 3 turns on the left side. The chain tightened visibly. They checked with the stick again. Now it was closer, about 2.5 centimeters of movement. 1 more turn on each side, Ji-won instructed. Minho did so. They checked again. Perfect. 2 centimeters of movement, exactly as it should be. Now tighten the axle nut again. Make it very tight as you can make it. Minho put all his weight on the wrench, tightening the axle nut until it would not move anymore. Start your bike, Ji-won said. Minho climbed on and started the engine. The grinding sound was gone. Completely gone. The bike purred smoothly like a contented cat. Minho revved it carefully. The sound was perfect, clean, powerful. He sat there on his bike, stunned into silence. All 5 boys were quiet now, looking at Ji-won with expressions that were completely different from when they had first arrived. The mockery was gone. The cruelty was gone. In their place was amazement, respect, and something else. Shame, maybe, or regret. 4 out of 4, Glasses finally said quietly. She fixed every single one. Without touching them, Red Jacket added. Just by telling us what to do. Who are you? Spiky Hair asked, staring at Ji-won like she was some kind of wizard. How do you know all this? Ji-won looked at these 5 rich boys with their expensive bikes and their expensive clothes. She thought about all the cruel things they had said to her less than an hour ago. She thought about how they had mocked her poverty, her appearance, her dirty hands. But she did not feel angry anymore. She just felt tired, and maybe a little bit satisfied that she had proven them wrong. I am just a gas station worker, she said simply. But I also know about motorcycles. My father taught me. Your father? Minho said, his voice soft now. Is he a mechanic? Ji-won looked away. He was. He died 3 years ago. The boys fell silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence, a guilty silence. They were starting to understand that they had judged this girl completely wrong. They had seen her dirty clothes and assumed she was worthless. They had seen her poverty and assumed she was stupid. They had been so wrong. One of the boys stepped forward. His name was Taeyang Choi, though Ji-won did not know that yet. He was the one wearing the red jacket, the one whose bike had vapor lock. He looked at Ji-won with eyes full of genuine respect. I am sorry, Taeyang said quietly. I am really sorry for how we treated you. For the things we said. That was wrong. Ji-won did not know how to respond. She had not expected an apology. She just nodded slightly. Where did you learn all this? Taeyang continued. You said your father taught you. He must have been an amazing mechanic. Something in Ji-won's chest tightened when she heard those words. Yes, her father had been amazing, the best. She missed him every single day. He was a master mechanic, she said softly. He had a workshop in the city. People brought him motorcycles from all over Seoul. He could fix anything. What was his name? Glasses asked, genuinely curious now. Kim Dong-hyun, Ji-won answered. The moment she said the name, Min-ho's head snapped up. His eyes went wide. Wait, Kim Dong-hyun? The Kim Dong-hyun? Ji-won looked at him confused. You know my father? I know of him, Min-ho said, his voice filled with awe. My father raced motorcycles 20 years ago. He talked about Kim Dong-hyun all the time. He said Kim was the best mechanic in the racing circuit. He said Kim could diagnose a problem just by listening to the engine for 5 seconds. Now it was Ji-won's turn to be surprised. Your father knew my father? Not just knew him. My father said Kim Dong-hyun saved his life once. There was a race and something was wrong with my father's bike. He could not figure out what. He was going to race anyway, but your father stopped him. He listened to the bike and said the brake line was cracked. If my father had raced, the brakes would have failed at high speed. He probably would have died. Ji-won felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She had not known that story. There were so many stories about her father that she would never know now. Your father was legendary, Min-ho continued. My dad still talks about him sometimes. He always says that Kim Dong-hyun was a genius with motorcycles. He could do things that other mechanics said were impossible. The other boys were listening in silence, starting to understand just how wrong they had been about Ji-won. This was not just some random gas station girl. This was the daughter of a legend. She had learned from the best. What happened to your father's workshop? Spiky Hair asked gently. Ji-won's throat felt tight. He got sick, cancer, 3 years ago. The treatment was expensive. Very expensive. We had to sell the workshop to pay the medical bills. But it was not enough. He died anyway, and we still had debt. She paused, trying to keep her voice steady. My mother got sick after that too. Not physical sickness, but in her mind. Depression. She cannot work. So I work instead. 3 different jobs. This gas station, a convenience store at night, and I deliver food on weekends when I can. And your motorcycle skills? Taeyang asked. You still practice? Ji-won shook her head. I have no workshop, no tools, no motorcycles to work on. I just remember what my father taught me. I study online when I can, watching videos and reading articles. But I have not actually worked on a real bike in 3 years, not until today. The boys exchanged looks with each other. They were starting to realize the full picture now. Ji-won had incredible skills that would make her valuable to any motorcycle shop in Korea. But she could not use those skills because she was trapped in poverty, working low-paying jobs just to survive. That is not right, Glasses said. Someone with your skills should be working as a mechanic, not pumping gas. I know, Ji-won said simply. But life is not fair. I learned that when my father died. Min-ho pulled out his phone. Wait here, he said. I need to call my father. Right now, what, why? Ji-won asked, confused. Just wait, please. Min-ho walked a few steps away and made a call. The other boys could hear him talking rapidly, his voice excited. He kept saying yes, that Kim Dong-hyun and his daughter and, you will not believe this. After a few minutes, Min-ho came back. His face was serious, but his eyes were bright with excitement. My father wants to talk to you, he said, holding out his phone to Ji-won. Ji-won hesitated, then took the phone. Hello? Is this Kim Dong-hyun's daughter? A man's voice asked. The voice was older, warm, and filled with emotion. Yes, sir. I am Kim Ji-won. Ji-won. My name is Park Jae-sung. Your father was my friend. He was more than my friend, actually. He saved my life once. I never got to thank him properly. I heard about his passing years ago. I wanted to reach out to his family, but I did not know how to find you. I am so sorry for your loss. Ji-won felt tears running down her face now. She wiped them away quickly, not wanting the boys to see, but they saw anyway. Thank you, she managed to say. My son tells me you just fixed 4 motorcycles without tools, Mr. Park continued. He says you diagnosed each problem just by observing and listening. Is that true? Yes, sir. My father taught me. Of course he did. That was exactly his method. He always said the bike would tell you what was wrong if you learned to listen. Mr. Park paused. Jiwon, what are you doing right now? For work, I mean. I work at my uncle's gas station and other jobs. How would you like to work with motorcycles instead? As a real mechanic? Jiwon's heart started beating faster. Sir? I own Park Motorsports. We have 5 locations in Seoul. We sell motorcycles and we repair them. We also work with racing teams. I have been looking for a skilled mechanic for months, but everyone I interview does not have the right skills or the right passion. He paused again. But the daughter of Kim Dong-hyun, someone he personally trained? That is exactly who I need. Sir, I do not have certification, Jiwon said quickly. I never went to mechanic school. I only learned from my father. Your father's training is worth more than any school certificate, Mr. Park said firmly. I will give you a proper apprenticeship. You will work with our master mechanics and learn everything you need to know. After a year, we will pay for you to get your official certification. But starting today, if you want, you can work for me. Jiwon could not speak. This was too much. This was impossible. Things like this did not happen to people like her. The position comes with a full salary, Mr. Park continued. Much more than you make now. It also comes with benefits, health insurance. Your mother's medical care will be covered. At those words, Jiwon broke down. She started crying, really crying, right there in front of the 5 rich boys at the gas station. She could not help it. Her mother's medicine was so expensive. They had been rationing it, making it last longer than it should because they could not afford the full prescription. If her mother could get proper treatment again, if she could get the therapy and medication she needed. I know this is sudden, Mr. Park said gently. You do not have to decide right now. Think about it. Talk to your mother. My son will give you my business card. Call me when you are ready. I do not need to think about it, Jiwon said through her tears. Yes, please. I want the job. I want it more than anything. She could hear Mr. Park smiling through the phone. Then welcome to Park Motorsports, Jiwon. Come to our main location on Monday morning. We will do all the paperwork and get you started. Your father would be proud of you. Jiwon handed the phone back to Minho. She was shaking, crying, overwhelmed. She could not believe this was real. An hour ago, these boys had mocked her and called her worthless. Now one of their fathers was offering her a dream job. Tae-yang stepped forward and did something surprising. He bowed to her. A deep, respectful bow. I am truly sorry for how I treated you. You deserve so much better than what we gave you today. Thank you for helping us anyway. One by one, the other boys bowed too. Even Minho, the one who had been cruelest of all, bowed deeply to Jiwon. I am sorry, Minho said, and he sounded like he meant it. I judged you by your appearance and your poverty. That was wrong. Incredibly wrong. You are worth 1,000 of me. You earned everything yourself. I have never earned anything in my life. My father gives me everything, but you worked for everything you have, including your skills. We were horrible to you, Spiky Hair added. We made fun of you for being poor, when really we should be ashamed of ourselves for being spoiled and useless. I do not think you are useless, Jiwon said, wiping her tears. You just did not know any better. Sometimes people need to learn lessons. Today you learned one. Glasses laughed a little. We definitely learned a lesson. Never judge someone by how they look. Never assume poor means stupid or worthless. And never ever mock someone before you know their story. Can I ask you something? Taeyang said. When we were making fun of you, saying all those cruel things, why did you stay calm? Why did you not get angry? Jiwon thought about that. I did feel angry inside, but I needed this job. I could not afford to lose my temper and get fired. My mother needs me. Also, my father taught me that angry people do not think clearly. If I had gotten angry, I would not have been able to focus on your motorcycles. I would not have been able to help you. You helped us even though we were cruel to you, Red Jacket said quietly. Why? Because you needed help, Jiwon said simply. I know about motorcycles. I could fix your problems, so I did. It is that simple. But it was not simple, and they all knew it. It would have been so easy for Jiwon to walk away, to let them suffer, to let them wait hours for a tow truck and pay thousands for repairs. They would have deserved it after how they treated her, but she had helped them anyway. You are a better person than any of us, Minho said. That is the truth. They stood there in the afternoon sun. 5 wealthy boys and 1 poor girl. But the power dynamic had completely reversed. Now the boys looked up to Ji-won with respect and admiration. Now they understood that money and fancy clothes meant nothing compared to real skill, real knowledge, real character. Min-ho pulled a business card from his wallet and wrote something on the back. He handed it to Ji-won. "This is my father's business card. His direct number is on the back. Call him Monday morning. He will be expecting you." "Thank you," Ji-won said, clutching the card like it was made of gold. "No, thank you," Min-ho replied. "You helped us today in more ways than one. You fixed our bikes, yes, but you also taught us something important, something we needed to learn." The boys started putting on their helmets, getting ready to leave, but before they got on their bikes, Tae-yang turned back to Ji-won. "Can I ask you one more thing?" "Sure." "Will you teach me?" "About motorcycles, I mean. I own this expensive bike, but I do not really know anything about it. I do not know how to take care of it. I do not even know how to check the oil. I just ride it because it is fun. But I want to actually understand it." "The way you understand motorcycles," Ji-won smiled a little. "Come to Park Motorsports after I start. I will teach you. Really? Really? Anyone who wants to learn, I will teach." That is what my father did. He never kept knowledge to himself. He shared it with everyone who wanted to know. Tae-yang grinned. "I will definitely come. I will bring these guys too. We all need to learn." The boys climbed on their motorcycles. All 4 bikes started perfectly, running smooth and clean. They revved their engines, but this time not to be loud and aggressive. This time it was almost like a salute, a way of saying goodbye and thank you. One by one they rode out of the gas station. But before Min-ho left, he stopped his bike next to Ji-won. "I promised I would apologize if you fixed our bikes," he said. "And I am apologizing. I'm truly sorry, not just for the things I said, but for the way I thought. I have learned something today. I will not forget it." Then he rode away, following his friends down the road toward Seoul. Ji-won stood there alone in the gas station, holding Mr. Park's business card in her dirty, oil-stained hands. She looked down at it, reading the words. Park Motorsports, Park Jae-sung, owner and president. She thought about her father. She wondered if he was watching somehow. If he knew what had just happened. She hoped he was proud. "I am going to be a mechanic, Dad," she whispered to the empty air. "Just like you wanted. I am finally going to use everything you taught me." The card in her hand felt like a key to a door that had been locked for 3 long years, a door to her future, to her dreams, to the life her father had wanted for her. She carefully put the card in her pocket, making sure it was safe. Then she went back to work, cleaning the gas pumps one more time before her shift ended. But everything felt different now. The same gas station, the same dirty pumps, the same hot afternoon sun. But everything had changed. In just a few hours, her entire life had transformed. She could not wait to tell her mother. 3 months passed like a dream that Ji-won was afraid to wake up from. That Monday morning, she had taken the bus to Park Motorsports' main location in Gangnam. The building was huge, much bigger than her father's small workshop had been. Glass windows showed rows of shiny motorcycles inside. The Park Motorsports logo gleamed in the morning sun. Ji-won had stood outside for 5 minutes, too nervous to go in. She was wearing her best clothes, which were still old and worn. She worried they would take one look at her and change their minds. But when she finally walked through those doors, Mr. Park himself was waiting for her. He was a man in his 50s with kind eyes and gray hair. When he saw her, he smiled warmly and shook her hand. "You look just like your father," he had said. Same eyes, same determined expression. He always looked like that when he was working on a difficult bike. That first day, Mr. Park showed her around the entire facility. The main showroom with hundreds of motorcycles. The service bays with lifts and tools and equipment that made Ji-won's heart race with excitement. The parts department with walls full of components. The break room where mechanics ate lunch and traded stories. "This will be your station," Mr. Park said, showing her a work bay with a full set of professional tools. "Everything here is yours to use. The master mechanics will train you, but your father already taught you the most important things. You just need to learn our systems and procedures." Ji-won had touched the tools reverently, a complete socket set, torque wrenches, diagnostic computers, things she had only dreamed about for 3 years. Now they were hers to use every day. The other mechanics had been skeptical at first. A 17-year-old girl with no certification? But Mr. Park told them about her father. He told them about the 4 motorcycles she had fixed without tools. He told them to give her a chance. Within a week, Jiwon had proven herself. A customer brought in a racing bike that 3 mechanics had failed to diagnose. The bike would die randomly, no pattern, no warning. The mechanics had checked everything. They were ready to replace the entire electrical system, an expensive job. Mr. Park asked Jiwon to take a look. She had walked around the bike, listening, observing. Then she asked the customer one question. "Do you wear a magnetic phone mount on your bike?" The customer said yes. Jiwon explained that the magnet was interfering with one of the sensors, causing random electrical failures. Remove the magnetic mount and the problem would disappear. The customer tried it. The bike ran perfectly. After that, the other mechanics started to respect her. They began asking her opinion on difficult problems. They watched how she worked, how she listened to engines, how she noticed tiny details. Some of them started calling her Mini Kim, after her father. Jiwon loved every moment of it. She woke up excited to go to work. She learned something new every single day. The master mechanics taught her about modern diagnostic systems, computer programming, advanced electronics. She taught them some of her father's old tricks, methods that had been forgotten in the digital age. At night, she would go home to the small apartment she shared with her mother. But that had changed too. Her mother was getting better. With proper health insurance, she could finally afford the therapy and medication she needed. She was smiling again, cooking again, talking about maybe looking for a job herself soon. "I'm so proud of you," her mother would say almost every night. Your father would be so proud too. One of the best parts of the new job was the insurance had covered some dental work and new glasses for her mother. Small things that they could never afford before but made such a big difference. But Jiwon's story did not stay secret for long. One of the customers at Park Motorsports was a journalist who wrote about motorcycles. He heard the story of the gas station girl who fixed 4 bikes without tools. He heard about her father, the legendary Kim Dong-hyun. He asked if he could write an article about her. Jiwon was nervous, but Mr. Park encouraged her. "Your story will inspire people," he said. "Let them hear it." The article was published online and went viral immediately. The no-tool mechanic, how a poor gas station girl became a motorcycle genius. Thousands of people read it, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. People were fascinated by Jiwon's story. They loved how she had stayed calm when the rich boys mocked her. They loved how she had helped them anyway. They loved how she used her father's teachings to solve problems without tools. Most of all, they loved that she had overcome poverty and tragedy through skill and determination. News sites picked up the story. Television shows wanted to interview her. Social media exploded with support. People started coming to Park Motorsports specifically to meet the no-tool mechanic. Some came from other cities, even other countries. Mr. Park set up a social media account for her with her permission. They posted videos of Jiwon diagnosing problems, explaining motorcycle maintenance, teaching people her father's methods. The account gained followers incredibly fast. Within 2 months, she had over 1 million followers. "You are becoming famous," Mr. Park told her with a smile. "Are you okay with that?" "I just want to work on motorcycles," Jiwon replied honestly. "But if the fame helps me teach people, then I'm okay with it." She started doing weekly live streams where she answered questions about motorcycle maintenance. She taught people how to diagnose problems by listening. She showed them how to do simple repairs themselves. She always ended each stream the same way with her father's philosophy. Listen first, touch second, and never judge. That last part became a popular saying online. People started using it not just for motorcycles, but for life in general. Listen first, touch second, and never judge. It meant to observe carefully before taking action, and never judge people by their appearance. True to his word, Taeyang became a regular at Park Motorsports. He came in twice a week after school to learn about motorcycle maintenance. The other boys came sometimes too, including Minho. They had all changed since that day at the gas station. Minho especially had grown. He started working part-time at his father's business, actually earning his own money for the first time. He was no longer arrogant. He was humble, polite, and genuinely trying to be a better person. "You changed my life that day," he told Jiwon once. "I was so spoiled, so useless. I thought money made me better than other people. But you showed me that skills, knowledge, character, those are what matter. Money is just money. It does not make you worth anything." Taeyang became Ji-won's best student. He had a natural talent for mechanics and he loved learning. He spent hours watching her work, asking questions, taking notes. He told her he was thinking about studying mechanical engineering in university. "You should," Ji-won encouraged him. "You would be good at it." "Because I had a good teacher," Taeyang replied. One Saturday afternoon, 3 months after that fateful day at the gas station, something special happened. Ji-won was working on a vintage motorcycle, a beautiful old bike that needed careful restoration work. She was focused on her task when she heard Mr. Park calling her name. "Ji-won, come to the showroom, please. Someone wants to meet you." She put down her tools and walked to the showroom, wiping her hands on a cloth. They were covered in grease again, but these days she had proper work gloves and good quality soap. Her hands were clean underneath the work grime. In the showroom, she saw a group of people gathered. Other mechanics from the shop, some customers, and someone else. A man in a wheelchair with a camera crew behind him. "Ji-won," Mr. Park said with a huge smile. "This is Kim Min-jae. He is a famous motorcyclist who had an accident 2 years ago. He runs a foundation now that helps young people get into technical careers. He wants to talk to you about something." Kim Min-jae rolled forward in his wheelchair and extended his hand. Ji-won shook it, confused but honored. "I read about you," Kim Min-jae said. "Your story touched me deeply. Your determination, your skills, your character. I want to help you continue your journey. My foundation would like to offer you a full scholarship to the Seoul Institute of Motorcycle Technology. It is the best technical school in Korea. You would get your certification, your degree, everything. Full ride. No cost to you." Ji-won's mouth opened, but no words came out. The Seoul Institute was the top school in the country. Graduates from there could work anywhere in the world, but it was expensive, impossibly expensive. She had never even dreamed of going there. "I do not know what to say," she finally managed. "Say yes," Kim Min-jae said with a smile. "You can work here part-time while you study. Mr. Park has already agreed. In 2 years, you will have your certification and your degree. You will be unstoppable." "Yes," Ji-won said, tears starting to fall. "Yes, thank you. Thank you so much." The people in the showroom erupted in applause. Someone started recording on their phone. This moment would be shared online later, giving hope to thousands of people who felt trapped by their circumstances. Mr. Park came over and put a hand on Ji-won's shoulder. "Your father would be so proud. I wish he could see you now." "I think he can," Ji-won said softly, looking up as if she could see through the ceiling to the sky beyond. The camera crew wanted to film Ji-won working, to show her skills for a documentary they were making. She agreed and went back to her work bay. As she worked on the vintage motorcycle, explaining her process to the camera, she felt completely at peace. This was where she belonged. This was what she was meant to do. Her father had known it when she was just a little girl watching him work. He had taught her everything he knew, hoping she would carry on his legacy. And she was, not just carrying it on, but expanding it. She was teaching a new generation, spreading her father's wisdom to thousands of people online. She was proving that skill and knowledge mattered more than money or status. She was showing that poor did not mean worthless, and that anyone could rise above their circumstances with determination and hard work. That evening, after the camera crew left and the shop closed, Ji-won sat in her work bay alone. She looked at her tools, her station, her workspace. She thought about how different her life was now compared to 3 months ago. 3 months ago, she had been a poor gas station worker with no hope for the future. Now she was a mechanic at one of the best shops in Seoul. She had a scholarship to the top technical school in Korea. She had 1 million followers online. She had a future. But the best part was not the fame or the scholarship or even the job. The best part was that she was happy. She was doing what she loved. She was honoring her father's memory. She was taking care of her mother. She was living the life her father had wanted for her. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Taeyang in their group chat. The group included Taeyang, Minho, and the other boys from that day at the gas station. They had stayed in touch, had become friends even. The message said, "Saw the news about your scholarship. Congratulations. We are all so proud of you. Want to celebrate? We can bring pizza to the shop." Ji-won smiled and typed back, "Yes, but I am teaching you all how to change brake pads tonight. No more relying on mechanics for everything." A series of groaning emojis came back, but she knew they would all show up. They always did. They were genuinely trying to learn now, trying to be less helpless and more self-sufficient. 30 minutes later, the boys arrived with pizza and drinks. They gathered in the shop's break room, eating and laughing and talking about motorcycles. They asked Jiwon questions about the scholarship, about her plans for the future. "I want to open my own shop someday," Jiwon told them, "like my father had. A place where people can learn, not just get repairs. A place where we teach young people how to work with their hands, how to solve problems, how to listen to machines." "That would be amazing," Taeyang said enthusiastically. "I would work there. After I finish university, I mean." "Me too," Minho added. "I know I am not good at mechanics yet, but I am trying to learn. I want to be useful, not just rich." After they finished eating, Jiwon kept her promise. She took them all out to the service bay and showed them how to change brake pads. They made mistakes, got frustrated, laughed at themselves. But they learned. They were trying, and that was what mattered. As Jiwon watched these 5 privileged boys struggle with brake calipers and curse at stubborn bolts, she remembered that day at the gas station. She remembered how cruel they had been, how they had mocked her, belittled her, treated her like trash. But people could change. They had changed. One moment of humiliation, one demonstration of skill, one act of grace in helping them despite their cruelty, had opened their eyes. They had learned. They had grown. Maybe that was the real lesson of her story. Not just that you should never judge people by their appearance. Not just that skills matter more than money, but that everyone deserves a chance to learn, to grow, to become better. Her father had believed that. He had believed in sharing knowledge and teaching anyone who wanted to learn, in giving people opportunities. Jiwon was carrying on that belief. Every bike she fixed, every student she taught, every video she posted online, she was spreading her father's philosophy. She was making the world a little bit better, one lesson at a time. Later that night, after the boys left and she was closing up the shop, Jiwon walked over to the wall where Mr. Park had hung something special. It was a photograph, old and faded, showing a young man standing next to a racing motorcycle. The man was smiling, confident, proud. It was her father, Kim Dong-hyun, in his racing days. Mr. Park had found the photo in his old racing memorabilia and had it framed for Jiwon. Now it hung in the shop where everyone could see it. Below the photo was a plaque with words engraved in metal. Kim Dong-hyun, Master Mechanic. His legacy lives on through his daughter. And underneath that, her father's philosophy: listen first, touch second, and never judge. Jiwon touched the photo gently, her fingers barely brushing the glass. "I did it, Dad," she whispered. "I'm a real mechanic now, just like you wanted. And I promise I will keep teaching people everything you taught me. Your wisdom will not die. It will live on through me, through my students, through everyone I teach." The shop was quiet except for the hum of the ventilation system. Outside, the streets of Seoul were alive with lights and traffic. But in here, in this moment, Jiwon felt connected to her father in a way she had not felt since he died. She thought about that day at the gas station, the day that changed everything. If those boys had not mocked her, if their bikes had not broken down, if she had not taken the chance to help them despite their cruelty, none of this would have happened. She would still be pumping gas, still struggling, still invisible. One moment had changed everything. One choice to help instead of walking away. One decision to prove her worth rather than accept their judgment. Life was strange like that. The worst moments could become the best moments if you made the right choices. Pain could become opportunity. Cruelty could become kindness. Mockery could become respect. Jiwon turned off the lights in the shop and walked toward the exit. Tomorrow was Sunday, her day off. She would spend it with her mother. Maybe take her out for a nice lunch. They could afford nice things now. Not expensive things, but nice things. Comfortable things. As she locked the door behind her and walked toward the bus stop, Jiwon smiled. She was tired from a long day of work, but it was a good tired. The tired that came from doing something you loved, from using your skills, from making a difference. She looked up at the night sky, at the stars barely visible through Seoul's light pollution. "Thank you, Dad," she said quietly, "for everything you taught me, for believing in me, for making me who I am." The wind blew gently, rustling her hair, and just for a moment Jiwon could almost feel her father's presence. Not sad or heavy, but warm and proud. He was gone, but his legacy lived on, in her hands, in her skills, in her heart, and soon in the hearts of all the students she would teach. She was no longer just Kim Ji-won, the poor gas station girl. She was Kim Ji-won, the no-tool mechanic, daughter of a legend, teacher to a new generation, proof that circumstances do not define destiny. And her story was just beginning.